Now, the 6th annual BRICS summit took place last week. I caught up with Cosatu General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi and I asked him about the role of unions in the BRICS Bank.
Well, we're still on the outside of the summit. We're not officially participating inside. We're meeting here from the unions of the participating countries. To one big statement we want to make is that we have to be inside. There can be no development anywhere in the world that doesn't take into consideration worker issues, because worker issues are developmental issues. So we're meeting here to plot about how we can strengthen the voice of workers, not outside but inside the BRICS summit. Just like business has managed to maneuver its way into the ears of the leadership of the BRICS, we want to do the same for the labor.
Who's attending this meeting that you're about to have?
Well, me, the leadership of Cosatu and Cosatu, and as well as the leaders from here, Brazil, in Russia, in India, all the BRICS countries participating unions are here.
Okay, let's talk about the agenda that you're going to be pushing, understanding that it's about making sure that the voice of the unions is heard within the BRICS summit. But are there any key issues that are top of the agenda for you today?
The issue of development, industrialization of the BRICS countries, and the links between not only the BRICS but the whole of the South and the progressive North is absolutely critical for the development of not only the African continent but the entire Latin America, Asian economies. Those linkages are very important, and today nobody can survive on its own. We need to create these economic blocks and to survive.
Are you going to be taking on the issue of, say for example, some of the investment that China does into South Africa and the broader continent that comes with a large contingent of expats, denying many jobs for locals?
It's not just that. When you emphasize on the need for the African continent to industrialize, the first thing is that we've got to adopt similar rules that will not allow one country to develop at the expense of the rest of their countries. It means that the whole trade regime must be looked at. The whole package of how countries assist one another must be looked at it, so that we don't recreate the independence syndrome from colonial era to now the big brothers of the South, but continuing with the same path of coming in to assist but not helping to develop the countries comprehensively.
And back home, the manufacturing strike continues. What in your view needs to happen for the strike to be broken?
The employers must come to the party. Clearly, the employers know that when the PricewaterhouseCoopers issued that report about the extent of inequalities in the middle of the strike, the workers will immediately look at those figures and say, we can't be settling in a manner that continues to widen the gap between the highest and the lowest paid. What
do you make of the brand perception that South Africa has now as the strike capital of the world?
I think that's a very unfair label. There's been 2 major strikes in South Africa this year, and most of the negotiations have been settled without embarking on the last resort. The strike is always the last resort. Of course, the strike currently going on in the manufacturing sector is the biggest because of the numbers of employers affected and the workers affected. I hope that it is going to be settled very soon, but to then brand South Africa as the strike capital of the world on the basis of 2 strikes is not fair.
And finally, how do you respond to the allegations that the unions are crippling the economy?
The people who are crippling the economy are those that are continuously widening the gap between the haves and have-nots in the manner that then creates conditions for workers to want more. Secondly, the people who are crippling the economy are those who are unable to ensure that the economy grows to the point that workers will not feel the burden that they currently carry of more unemployed members of their families. And there is a direct relationship between the fact that today workers are supporting more unemployed members of their families than they did in 1994. And that puts them under pressure, and that's why they demand double digits. And of course, the issue of inequalities, unemployment, and poverty in South Africa remains the structural issues we inherited from our past. It has to be resolved, and it can't be resolved by suppressing the wages of workers whilst allowing the wages of CEOs to be comparable to the best paid in the world, such as the Americans.
Are you happy with the type and degree of government leadership we've had over the last couple of months, where we've had the two biggest strikes so far?
No, that have nothing to do with the government. It have to do with the relations between labor and capital at the workplace, and that's where things didn't work out. Government have done its best in relation to the first, and it has also tried to settle this strike by forcing parties even before the strike started into some form of negotiations. And I think it is in those negotiations that we now say the gap between the employers and the workers have been reduced so significantly.
That was Cosatu's General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi.